Amazon. Flash briefing.
Jamie, here's your flash briefing. In NPR News.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Attorneys are expected to make opening statements today in a federal seditious conspiracy trial against 4 members of the far-right Oath Keepers group. NPR's Ryan Lucas reports the men are accused of plotting to prevent Joe Biden from taking office.
The trial of Roberto Minuta, Joseph Hackett, David Morshell, and Edward Vallejo is the second seditious conspiracy trial against members of the Oath Keepers in connection with the January 6th Capitol attack. 2 weeks ago, a federal jury in Washington, D.C. convicted the group's founder, Stuart Rhodes, and the leader of its Florida chapter, Kelly Meggs, of seditious conspiracy and other crimes. 3 other defendants were acquitted of the sedition charge, but found guilty of other offenses. The verdict was viewed as a victory for the Justice Department. The seditious conspiracy prosecution against the Oath Keepers is one of the most significant cases to emerge from the federal investigation into the events of January 6th.
They weren't convicted.
Ryan
They were
Lucas,
convicted on
NPR
other
News,
things.
Washington.
A powerful winter storm that struck the western U.S. over the weekend has pushed into the central U.S. There are blizzard conditions from parts of the Rockies to the plains. Mark Chenard is with the National Weather Service.
Significant winter impact from portions of, say, northeast Colorado into portions of central Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota. That general vicinity is looking at some higher end winter impact as we get into, especially by the day Tuesday and even into Wednesday. So heavy snow, blowing snow.
Nebraska could receive up to 2 feet of snow and wind gusts of 50 miles per hour. Different winter storm cautions stretch from Arizona up to Minnesota. The U.S. has taken custody of a former Libyan intelligence agent. He is accused of building the bomb that went off aboard a U.S.-bound jet over Lockerbie, Scotland in 1988. 270 people were killed. The U.S. says the Libyan suspect was first arrested by Libyan authorities in 2020, and he reportedly confessed to making the bomb. Stocks opened higher this morning as investors wait for a new inflation report card. NPR's Scott Horsley reports the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose nearly 160 points.
You don't have to
in
wait.
early
You know the
trading.
Fed's
The Labor
raising
Department is
interest.
set to report tomorrow on consumer prices for November. Gasoline prices have fallen sharply, with the average price now lower than it was a year ago. Some of those
Still
savings
not
could be
lower than
offset, though, by
before the pandemic.
rising grocery prices. Wholesale data released last week showed a big spike in the price of winter
Increase it
vegetables.
3 times.
While food
Drop
and
it
energy
once,
prices
and brag.
often bounce up and down, the Federal Reserve is concerned about
Hey,
potentially
repeat.
more stubborn inflation in the cost of services.
Stubborn
The Fed's
inflation.
expected to raise interest rates by another half percentage
Oh my
point
gosh,
this week.
so brag
Central
this
Bank is
down
also
this
keeping
week
an eye on the tightening
and
of the
then
market.
raise it this
Scott
week.
Horsley, NPR
Half a
News,
percentage.
Washington.
On Wall Street,
Nice.
the Dow is now up 163 points at 33,638. The Nasdaq is up more than 30 points. You're listening to NPR News. Los Angeles is getting a new mayor. Karen Bass, the former Democratic congresswoman, took a ceremonial oath of office yesterday. She was administered the oath by Vice President Kamala Harris. Palestinian officials say Israeli troops killed a Palestinian teenage girl during a military arrest raid in the occupied West Bank. It's the latest violence in an especially deadly year for Palestinians in the West Bank, as NPR's Daniel Eschen reports from Tel Aviv.
Israel's army has been carrying out frequent night raids at Palestinian areas this year, arresting suspected militants and rounding up weapons. During these incursions, Palestinian gunmen frequently engage in firefights with Israeli soldiers. More than 150 Palestinians have been killed this year, including children. In the latest Israeli raid in the city of Jenin, Palestinian officials say a 16-year-old girl was shot in the head while on the roof of her home. An Israeli military official tells NPR the army's initial assessment is that its soldiers are responsible for shooting her
Hang
and
out
they're
on the roof,
investigating.
man. They'll
An
think
Al
you're
Jazeera
sniping.
journalist was killed in the same area this year. Under U.S. pressure, Israel said its
Anyone
soldiers
hang
were
out on the
likely
roof?
responsible. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
NASA's Orion spacecraft is back on Earth after spending nearly a month in space. The probe went around the moon and back, coming within about 80 miles of the lunar surface. The flight was a test to see if NASA can use the vehicle to fly astronauts. Scientists say the volcanic eruption of Hawaii's Mauna Loa has paused. The U.S. Geological Survey says all recent eruptive activity in the volcanic crater has now ceased. I'm Corva Coleman, NPR News.
What's happening on NPR Podcast? More neighborhoods.
More
Amazon.
identities and more
Skip.
in NASA news. NASA's Orion spacecraft splashed down in the Pacific Ocean west of Baja California at 9:39 a.m. PST Sunday after a record-breaking mission, traveling more than 1.4 million miles on a path around the moon and returning safely to Earth, completing the Artemis I flight test.
Okay.
NASA has finalized its contract with Boeing of Huntsville, Alabama, for approximately $3.2 billion to continue manufacturing core and upper stages for future Space Launch System, SLS, rockets for Artemis missions to the moon and beyond. Students in Charlevoix, Michigan, will have an opportunity next week to hear from a NASA astronaut
nothing,
living
bro.
and working aboard the International Space Station. NASA has selected Cheneda Global Protection, LLC, of Chantilly, Virginia, to
LLC,
receive the
not
NASA
to be
Protective
confused with
Services
LL
Eastern
Cool
Region
J.
contract. NASA has awarded a task order to Collins Aerospace to deliver a spacewalking system for potential use outside the International Space Station. In weather. Currently, in Seattle it's 42 degrees Fahrenheit with mostly cloudy skies. Today, you can expect dreary weather, with a high of 44 degrees and a low of 32 degrees.
Okay,
From
Amazon.
NASA,
Off. Amazon. Tell us a joke.
why does the naughty cat think its holiday jokes are funny? Every year, it cracks up all the ornaments.
Mm-hmm. Silly cat playing with ornaments. Alright. Cracks you up, don't it? Alright. Have a good day.